going? I hope you're all having a really good start to the day. I just want to talk about Amaryllis today, specifically the type that have had their bulbs encased in wax. Because this whole concept of planting is brand new to me. Like last year was the first time I heard about it, and I was very skeptical. I tried it out for the first time this year. I grew 5 Amaryllis in wax cases. So I just wanted to report back to you guys what my experience was, and then show you what I'm gonna do for kind of aftercare here, because I do want to try to save these bulbs. So these are the 3 I wanted to show you because they're in different stages of bloom. This first one here, you can see this beautiful bloom just started to open up last night. Isn't that so gorgeous? The back side of it, you can see there are 3 more it looks like. If not, there's another one in there, so maybe 4 more blooms coming out of this one stalk. And if we follow it down, you can see 2 very healthy looking leaves and another bloom stalk forming down here. And it's just nice and upright, looks really healthy. Then we've got this one, which is a little further along. It's got a shorter stalk, which is kind of funny. I think they're the same variety. This one, of course, has been in bloom long enough to where we have a couple of spent blooms that I need to remove today. These will probably last another day or 2, hopefully. But then if we follow that stalk down, you'll see a leaf here and another bloom stalk forming. And then this very last example here, this is its 2nd bloom stalk. So if we follow down, I don't know, it's a little bit dim in here, but there is a spent bloom stalk that I had already cut off earlier right here. So that was its first bloom stalk. We've got leaves. And then, you know, of course, the spent flowers here. So I'm gonna show you how I both deadhead these and then what I'm gonna do with this. So the biggest reason I was skeptical is that everybody who was selling these claimed that everything that bulb needed to grow and produce its blooms was all encased in wax. And it just seemed a little bit unlikely to me because I water my other Amaryllis that are potted at least once a week. I just thought, really? Like, is that really gonna work? So I'm just so excited that it worked out beautifully because I think this is just a wonderful gift to give, because it's like, here you go. You don't need any pot or soil or water. You don't need to do anything. Just put it in a bright spot and it'll bloom gorgeous for you. The only thing that I would say to be mindful of with these Amaryllis is that I had one, so I grew 5 altogether. One of them got so tall that it was very top heavy. So I found it on the floor one morning, and then I propped it back up and found it on the floor again, and then I just realized what was going on and ended up having to kind of bolster the bottoms to where there was a little more weight down there so that it would hold that stalk up. So that's just something to keep in mind if you happen to have one that just grows really, really tall. But you can see with these, of course, like the bottom is heavy enough to keep them all upright, even when they're in full bloom. So, you know, 4 out of 5 have stayed upright on their own. In terms of care, other than just making sure that they stay upright, I just put them in a spot that gets quite a bit of morning light, and they've been super happy. So I haven't had to do anything with these other than what I'm gonna do today. So I'm gonna deadhead this one right here. In fact, let me set the camera up so you can see close up kind of what I'm doing. Okay, so you can see the bloom stalk right here. Now, if we were to leave these spent blooms on, you see this little knob right here kind of at the bottom of each one of these blooms. If we don't remove those, the plant will send energy into that little area to try to produce seed. And that's not really what we want to do, because that takes an enormous amount of energy away from the plant. And we want the plant to have a lot of energy to put into this new bloom stalk and its new leaves. So what I do is I just take my little snips here and cut these spent blooms off. Just like that, super easy. And that way, this little section right here is gone. And this one right here is the next one I want to deal with. I was talking with somebody at Gardener Supply, because that's who I got all of these wax Amaryllis from, and they said that once they are done blooming in their little wax cases, you can cut off the bloom stalk and you can pick the wax off and replant the bulb. So that's what I'm gonna do with this one, and I just wanna show you that process. I have never done this before, so I have no idea how hard this little wax case is going to be to get off, so we'll just have to experience this together. Here we go. Okay, so first thing I'm gonna do is take this stalk off so it's out of the way. So I'm just gonna gently move the leaves aside and snip it off. So now I'm just left with my bulb, and you can see here, let me make sure it's focusing really well. Like, there are depressions in this wax where they've kind of like, it's like the bulb has sunk in. Oh, this is coming off really easy. Oh, yay. I thought this was gonna be a really long, lengthy process. I was gearing up for it. Looking pretty decent. It's a little bit moist on the outer side here. Not bad, it's not squishy or anything. Don't judge me on my fingernails, you guys. I need to redo them. Okay, so that was easy. And now each one of these has a wire that has been stuck into the bottom. You can see that. That's what has been keeping it upright. That was its little stand. So you can see the bottom of the bulb here. There are no roots forming or formed. So I don't know, we're gonna have to just see how this goes. Now I'm gonna pot this up in a little concrete container today. I am gonna wait to water it though, just for a couple of days. Even though there will be soil around it, there'll still be oxygen around the case of this bulb. I'm gonna let it dry out a little bit. Like one could just let it sit, you know, just sit on a counter somewhere and dry out for a day or two before planting. But I'm just gonna pop it in its soil and I'll just wait like 3 or 4 days to water it. I don't know if that was a one-off experience, but that was really easy. I was expecting it to be akin to trying to take off a really stubborn sticker off of like a new, I don't know, something you've just bought at the store. I mean, you guys know what those stickers are like. I'm gonna use regular potting soil right here. This is the Espoma Organic. And then once I start to water in 3 to 4 days, I'm gonna use some just indoor, well, you can use this outdoor too. This is the organic grow fertilizer right here. I'm gonna make sure to only pot up to about right here. That's where my soil level will be, because you don't want any soil or water to be getting in down into the neck of the bulb. So let me do that really quick. So I put soil in there. I created a little bit of a well, so I could just pop the bulb down in like that, and then I'm just gonna tamp in the extra soil with my finger. Oh, I can hear Russell at the door. Is he at this door? Russell, I think I'm going crazy. I'm like hearing cats all the time. Ugh. I swear I still hear a cat. Yes, Russell, I was right. Jeez. I still have a bunch of beautiful stuff back here. I'm about ready to make some magnolia wreaths. That looks perfect. You only ever want to cover up the bulb like half to maybe 2/3 of the way up with soil. I'm going to be top dressing this with moss as soon as I water it in a few days, and then it'll look really nice and sharp and clean. This container right here, this is called a rose rim planter. It's from Unique Stone. To me, it's kind of like a romancing the ordinary version of a terracotta pot, and I love to have a stack of these hanging out because they just elevate a potted plant so much. And here's the leavings from today. So we've got our 2 amaryllis that are ready to go back inside. Here's the bloom stalk right here from that one. Here's our pile of wax, which I'm really thrilled about, that came off in such nice big dry chunks. And then our 2 blooms there that we popped off of this stalk right here. So I am gonna be treating my amaryllis bulbs a little bit differently this year. I just wanted to talk quick about what I'm planning on doing. I will be making videos of the process and then what we need to do to get them to bloom again. First off, I don't think there's anything wrong with treating your amaryllis as an annual plant, as a holiday plant. That's what they're grown for, just like poinsettias. If it's not something you wanna mess with because it can be a fussy process to get them to rebloom, there's nothing wrong with that. I have a lot of bulbs this year though, and I just thought, oh my goodness, if I could try to keep those over and do this again next year and maybe add a little bit to the collection every year, then 1, it doesn't break the bank, and 2, I mean, we'll just have this huge, glorious display of blooms. And I did not plan this out at all, but I happened to get my hands on varieties that had a really different bloom time. So there are some varieties that bloom really quick and some that take a lot longer to bloom. So if you can do a little research and figure that out and plan it out, you can have blooms from mid-November all the way to Valentine's Day or beyond that. That's a lot of time to have beautiful blooms in your house. Totally worth it. So if I can get them to grow really well this year and we can get them to, you know, force them into bloom this fall, I will be so happy. So here's my plan. Typically what I've done is I have them, you know, all potted up in pots like this or terracotta or whatever the case may be, whatever it's potted up in, and I just treat them as houseplants. I put them in a bright spot, fertilize like every 2 to 4 weeks, water once a week about. It'll be different for every climate depending on how, you know, humid you are and where you have your pot positioned, but that's typically what I do with mine. The problem with mine is that they're a little bit too dependent on me when they're in pots like this, and typically they're not in big pots. And my houseplants tend to get neglected when gardening season is in full swing outside. So what I'm gonna do is once it gets warm enough, probably about the first part of May, maybe even end of April if we're having a really good spring, I'm going to pop them all out of their containers and plant them in the landscape. I'm gonna put them all in one spot in a flower bed, and I'm just gonna let them grow and size up there, because I've heard, I've of course not experienced this, but I've heard that they do a lot better and the bulbs will grow a lot bigger when they're in the landscape. So I wanna try that out this year. So the thing we have to keep in mind about that is I'm going to put them in a spot, because they're untested in our dry, hot summers. I'm gonna put them in a spot that gets morning sun and then protection in the afternoon. And then there's a two-step process to get them to bloom again. Both steps take 6 to 8 weeks, so you have to time it out right in order to have blooms by Christmas. So first off, you have to create or simulate a dormancy period for your bulb, which takes 6 to 8 weeks, which means about September 1st, I'm gonna set an alarm on my phone. September 1st, we need to dig up all of the Amaryllis bulbs, and I'm gonna pot them up in whatever pots I want them in. And I will groom off anything that's ugly or dead or whatever, and I'll give them one nice watering. And then I'm gonna put them in a spot that's really dimly lit or dark, and somewhere that stays about 55 degrees, which means our basement. And so we'll leave them there. That's it. That's all we'll do. We'll leave them there for 6 to 8 weeks, which means right about the end of October, we will, is that the end of October? Mid to late October, we'll take them out of their dormancy period and we'll water them. We'll put them where we want to keep them in the house, which is usually a bright spot, and then just leave them alone. Once they start pushing some growth, some leaf growth, then that's when you can start consistently watering them again. And then hopefully in 6 to 8 weeks, we're seeing blooms, which means about mid-December. So that's the plan, and I'm hoping by letting them grow outside, which most plants are happier growing outside anyway, I'm hoping that that makes me have more success with them this year. I've had fairly good luck, but it is, you have to be like diligent about the dates that you start, you know, your dormancy period, and then bringing them back out to force them to bloom. So anyway, I'm really excited about this process because I think the plants themselves are beautiful. Even without the blooms, the leaves are so thick and just so, like, I love that strappy look. It's almost like agapanthus, but on steroids. I know there's probably some other plant that looks closer to what these look like, but so pretty. Couple of other things, when I put them in the ground outside, I'm probably gonna be using a little bit of Biotone starter fertilizer in the soil where I plant them, because I want them to create a huge root system and like size up really well. And then when I repot them back in their containers, I'll be using the same potting mix. So this potting mix right here. And then if you notice, once you have taken your bulbs out of their dormancy period, if they look kind of like, if you haven't had any growth on them, you might squeeze the top of their neck. If it feels really soft or squishy, they may have rotted. Also, if you don't see much growth or they don't get blooms on them and you just get a bunch of leaves, you can do the same process over again for the next year. It just might mean that they didn't have enough energy to bloom that year and they need another year to kind of build it up to, you know, bloom, or they may not have had a long enough or a cold enough dormancy period. So those are all things you can kind of check on. I know that that was a whole lot of information I just threw at you guys that really doesn't pertain to what I did today, but that's my plan for this year, and I will be doing more videos to show you guys that process. So I hope you enjoyed seeing this whole wax process and just hearing about my experience. I'd love to hear about yours. I know a lot of you guys tried it. I just think they're such an amazing gift. Like, that was my very first thing when I learned about these. I thought, what a wonderful thing when you can just hand somebody this, you know, beautiful bulb that's decorated gorgeous and just say, like, put it on a bright windowsill, and you don't have to do a dang thing. You don't need a pot, you don't need soil, you don't need to water it, like, you don't need to do anything. You do not have to be a green thumb. You can just give them this waxed amaryllis and let them enjoy seeing it grow. And there's something about it, even though I didn't do anything, I still feel proud of myself that they bloomed. I hope I'm not alone in that. Anyway, guys, that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.